If you're here because you Googled crying boy painting curse again, like I did 100 times last month, welcome to the club. The Insomnia Brigade. The ones who stare at thrift store finds under the glow of a phone screen at 3 a.m., wondering if that cheap print is worth the nightmare. Spoiler, it's not. But you buy it anyway, because something in those wide, tear-streaked eyes pulls you in, like a hook through the gut. I know. I did it. It started innocently enough, or as innocent as poking around your late aunt's dusty attic can be. Aunt Edith died in April, sharp as a tack until the end at 92, but hoarder-level eccentric. She left me the house in Rotherham, that crumbling semi-detached on the edge of town where the moors bleed into suburbia. For the family legacy, her will said. Legacy. More like a lifetime supply of moth-eaten cardigans and unpaid gas bills. I was up there last weekend, sorting through boxes that smelled like regret and lavender talc. That's when I found it. Propped against a stack of yellowed National Geographics, face turned to the wall like it was hiding from the light. A framed print, maybe 24 by 18 inches, of a boy. Not just any boy, a crying boy. Big brown eyes brimming with tears that hadn't quite fallen. Dark curls plastered to his forehead like he'd been caught in a downpour. He wore a red smock, the kind from old Italian portraits, and his lower lip trembled in that way that makes your chest ache. The artist signed it in the corner. Giovanni Bragolin, 1958. I knew the name vaguely. Something from a late-night Wikipedia binge years ago. The crying boy. The one from the fires. I laughed it off at first. Picked it up. Dusted the glass with my sleeve. The frame was cheap pine. Splintered at the edges. But the print itself? Pristine. Colors vivid, like it had been hung in a gallery, not a cobweb-choked attic. Aunt Edith must have bought it at one of those car boot sales she loved. Back when Rotherham still had that gritty charm before the high street turned into vape shops and pound stores. I almost left it there. But then I flipped it over, and taped to the back was a faded news clipping from The Sun, dated September 5th, 1985. Headline: Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy. The article was creased and brittle, but the words leaped out. Houses burning across the north. Families fleeing in nighties. And in every gutted ruin, one thing untouched, the painting. Dozens of them, all the same wide-eyed kid. Firemen scratching heads. Tabloids foaming at the mouth. Cursed! It screamed. The boy's ghost, trapped in the canvas, seeking revenge for his own fiery death. I rolled my eyes, but my fingers itched. For £2 at a flea market, it's a steal. A story for the blog. Clickbait gold. I brought it home that night, hung it in the spare room above the mantel. The house, my house now, is a creaky Victorian thing. All drafty corners and floorboards that groan like they're telling secrets. I snapped a photo, posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Scored a cursed classic. Who's burning with me?" Fire smiling face with horns, #cryingboy, #urban-legend, #Rotherham horror. Likes poured in. Comments: Dude, get rid of it. My gran had one house fire in 87. It's real. The eyes follow you. Skeptical Alex, that was me then. Laughed into my pint at the local that evening. Told the barman, old Pete with the tattooed knuckles, about my find. He paled under the pub's yellow lights. Edith's, She always said it watched her. Blamed it for the divorce, the cat running off. Burn it, lad, before it chooses you. I didn't burn it. I blogged about it instead. This very post was going to be a light-hearted debunk. The crying boy myth, tabloid trash, or terrifying truth? I quote the experts. How Bruno Amadio, the real painter behind the pseudonym, churned out 65 of these in the 50s to sell to tourists in Venice. How the curse exploded in 85 after a Rotherham fire, where the print survived because, get this, it's printed on flame-retardant board from the factory. Jadrell bank-level science. No ghosts, just bad luck and mass hysteria. People burning their own paintings, driving sales through the roof. Classic folklore feedback loop. But that was before the first night. It was past midnight when I heard it. Asobi. Soft, muffled, like a kid trying to hide under the duvet. I bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. The house was silent otherwise. No wind rattling the sash windows. No neighbor's telly bleeding through the walls. I told myself it was the pipe settling, or maybe a fox in the bin. But the sound came again, closer, from down the hall. A hitch of breath, wet and ragged. I grabbed my phone, torch beams slicing the dark as I crept toward the spare room. The door was ajar. Moonlight slanted through the curtains, pooling silver on the floorboards. And there it hung. The boy, eyes locked on mine. Or so it seemed. Those tears glistened, fuller now, like they'd welled up in the hour since I'd last glanced at him. I laughed. Nerves, adrenaline, and reached for the light switch. Click. The bulb flickered, hummed, died. Back up from the phone. Nothing unusual. Just a print. Just paint. Back in bed, I scrolled comments on my Insta post. One from @HauntedHarry87. The boy was an orphan. Died in a fire after the artist painted him. His spirit's pissed, wants company. I blocked him. Sleep came fitful, dreams of smoke curling under doors. Tiny hands pounding glass. Morning brought coffee and clarity. I Googled deeper. Forums lit up with stories. A mum in Leeds, 92, wakes to her toddler screaming about the sad boy in the wall. Curtains catch fire that afternoon. Painting smirks through the blaze. I quote the experts. How Bruno Amadio, the real painter behind the pseudonym, churned out 65 of these in the 50s to sell to tourists in Venice. How the curse exploded in 85 after a Rotherham fire, where the print survived because, get this, it's printed on flame-retardant board from the factory. Jadrell bank-level science. No ghosts, just bad luck and mass hysteria. People burning their own paintings, driving sales through the roof. Classic folklore feedback loop. But that was before the first night. It was past midnight when I heard it. Asobi. Soft, muffled, like a kid trying to hide under the duvet. I bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. The house was silent otherwise. No wind rattling the sash windows. No neighbor's telly bleeding through the walls. I told myself it was the pipe settling, or maybe a fox in the bin. But the sound came again, closer, from down the hall. A hitch of breath, wet and ragged. I grabbed my phone, torch beams slicing the dark as I crept toward the spare room. The door was ajar. Moonlight slanted through the curtains, pooling silver on the floorboards. And there it hung. The boy, eyes locked on mine. Or so it seemed. Those tears glistened, fuller now, like they'd welled up in the hour since I'd last glanced at him. I laughed. Nerves, adrenaline, and reached for the light switch. Click. The bulb flickered, hummed, died. Back up from the phone. Nothing unusual. Just a print. Just paint. Back in bed, I scrolled comments on my Insta post. One from @HauntedHarry87. The boy was an orphan. Died in a fire after the artist painted him. His spirit's pissed, wants company. I blocked him. Sleep came fitful, dreams of smoke curling under doors. Tiny hands pounding glass. Morning brought coffee and clarity. I Googled deeper. Forums lit up with stories. A mum in Leeds, 92, wakes to her toddler screaming about the sad boy in the wall. Curtains catch fire that afternoon. Painting smirks through the blaze. A bloke in Manchester, 2001, hangs it for irony. Wife leaves after nightmares of burning alive. He sells it on eBay. Buyer ghosts him after the listing vanishes. Patterns emerged. The eyes. Always the eyes. They move. One poster swore. Blink when you're not looking. I shook it off. Hung a sheet over the frame. Out for groceries, pub lunch with mates. Normalcy as armor. But driving home, past the old mill where half the town once worked before it shuttered, I caught a whiff. Acrid like charred toast. Windows down, nothing. Paranoia, I thought, until I pulled into the drive and saw the postman, face ashen, dropping my mail like it burned. Smell that? He muttered, nodding at the house. Like last summer's barbecue gone wrong. I sniffed. Ozone and ash. Faint but there. Inside, the air was thick, cloying. The sheet had slipped. Boy peeking out, innocent as ever. I yanked it back up, nailed it tight this time. That night, no sobs. Just silence heavier than before. The kind that presses on your eardrums. By Wednesday, the blog draft was gathering dust. Couldn't write. Words stuck like tar. Instead, I researched Aunt Edith. Phone call to cousin Maureen in Doncaster. Oh, that painting? She got it after Uncle Reg scarpered. Said it reminded her of him, crying over lost chances. But then the fires started. Small ones. Curtains, kettle flecks. She swore it was watching, waiting for her to crack. Crack. The word lingered. I dreamed of cracks that night. Fissures in walls, splitting open to belch smoke. The boy at the center, arms outstretched, mouth open in a silent scream. I woke gasping, throat raw. Downstairs, the kitchen reeked. Black smudges on the counter, like fingers dragged through soot. The toaster, plugged in cold, had melted plastic where the lever met the base. No heat source. No explanation. Panic clawed in. I tore the painting down, sheet and all, dumped it in the garden under a tarp. Rain that night was biblical, drumming the roof like accusatory fingers. Slept with the lights on, door bolted.
Dain tërpsoden frame untouched.
But when I peeled it back, the glass was fogged. Inside, faint outlines. Handprints? No, just condensation. I laughed, hysterical, and hauled it to the tip. Bin men wouldn't touch it. Council policy on flammables, mate. Flammables. Goo. Back home, the smell lingered. Faint, teasing.
I skrubbed counters till mi knuckles bled.
Called an electrician, wiring fine. Gasman, leak-free. By evening, doubt festered. I uncovered the phone. Searched, crying boy survivors. Stories flooded. Families who kept it. Thrived. It's a guardian, one claimed. Wards off worse. But the dissenters? Their tales chilled. A fire in Hull, 89. Mum perishes hugging her infant. Painting floats above the crib, pristine. Dad's suicide 6 months later. Note reading, he wouldn't stop crying. Caved. Brought it back inside. Hung it in the hall where I could watch it. Those eyes, God, those eyes. They weren't accusatory. They were pleading. Come play, they said. Share my secret. I snapped another photo, posted. Update. Keeping the crybaby. What's the worst that could happen? Hashtag cursed art, hashtag send help. Comments exploded. Warnings. Memes. One DM from a journo. Interview? The legend's real. Sources say the boy's name was Don. Died 1940s Venetian orphanage blaze. Amadio captured his soul on canvas. Don. The name hit like a slap. My childhood imaginary friend Donnie. The kid who died in our Garden Fort fire game. Coincidence? Had to be. That night the sobs returned. Louder, closer. From the hall now, echoing off the stairs. I stumbled out, barefoot on cold tiles. And there he was, boy on the wall, tears tracing fresh paths down his cheeks.
Actual tears?
No, condensation again from the damp. But the frame was warm, fever hot. I touched it, yanked back. Blister on my thumb, red and weeping. No sleep after that. I paced, wired on adrenaline and black tea. Dawn brought the first real incident. Post through the letterbox, bill, junk mail. But the envelope smoldered at the edges, paper curling black. How? The slot was brass, cool to touch. I dropped it in the sink, ran water. Steam rose, hissing like laughter. Maureen called mid-morning, voice quavering. Alex?
Edites sollicitorant.
There's a codicil to the will. The painting, it's not yours to sell or destroy. Bound to the bloodline, she wrote. What the hell does that mean? Bound. The word snagged. I stormed the attic again, rifling diaries. Edith Scrawl, 1986. The boy came tonight. Whispers of fire and loss. Reg's fault. Left us for her the flames of passion. Now he wants me to join. But I won't. I'll pass it on. Pass it on. To me, the last Hargrove in Rotherham. No kids, no siblings. Just me. Rattling around this mausoleum of memories. By afternoon, the house felt alive. Creaks weren't settling. They were footsteps, small and pattering. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, pooling at the painting's base. I tried to write, to blog the fear away. Day 3. The curse is creeping in, but the laptop screen glitched, pixels forming eyes, a face. I slammed it shut, heart in throat. Evening, pub for oblivion. Pete poured doubles, no questions. Told you, lad. It's in the eyes. They choose who burns. Back home, staggering up the path, I saw it through the window. The painting, glowing, soft orange like embers. Inside, the hall was sauna warm, air shimmering. The boy's tears, real now, streaking the glass in rivulets. And beneath the frame on the wallpaper, scorch marks. A child's handprint, 5 fingers splayed. Reaching up, I ran, grabbed keys, bolted to the car. Drove nowhere, moors, winding roads slick with mist. Radio crackled news. House fire in Rotherham outskirts. No casualties, but bizarre. Artwork survives blaze intact. My street? No, but close. Too close. Pulled over on a Laby, engine ticking cool. Phone buzzed. Notification from my own blog. A new comment posted 2 minutes ago. Username at Donnie Hargrove 1947. Why did you leave me, Alex? It's warm here. Come play in the fire. I screamed. Threw the phone into the heather. Drove back, stealing for war.